what I really feel like that I want to discuss with you is it's not a rehashing, but it's a clarification, I guess, in some ways of temptation and the power of temptation and how we as individuals can defeat the temptations of our lives. Because really and truly, if we fail every time we're tempted, we lose, right? Because we're going to be tempted in some way. Most of us are going to be tempted on a very regular basis. I'm going to kind of discuss the whole process of how temptation works and also how we can defeat it and how we can overcome it. Temptation deals with evil or desires of the heart that are evil. The goodness in your heart is not being tempted. In other words, Satan is not tempting you to do good, right? I mean, that's kind of silly, isn't it? He's not tempting you to do good. Satan is tempting you to do evil. Okay? Now, for you to be tempted in the sense of temptation, there has to be a desire there that can be tempted, right? Okay? I'm going to try to explain to you the power of Satan in the sense that there is a desire in your heart that Satan knows is there, and he tempts that desire. It's an evil desire. It is a desire that's wanting to act out. It's looking for, in many cases, some sort of immediate gratification. It's looking to be satisfied by some outward object. Okay? Now, alcohol and drugs certainly fall into those outward objects, but there's many, many other things. The world, the lust of the world, all of that are outward objects. The problem is not those things. The problem is in here. Your heart is your problem. You have a heart condition. You have evil desires in your heart that are responding to temptations. Okay? So if there is no desire in your heart, temptation cannot be a problem for you. It won't be a problem for you. Okay? Now, no one is probably to that level yet. I probably would guess that nobody's perfect, but the evil desires are something that, in other words, and there is a equation that you can put together here. The more you're being tempted, the more evil desires you have. So if you're not being tempted, you have few desires. If you're being tempted a lot, you have a lot of desires, evil desires. Okay? So there's a lot of work for you to do. So it's a direct correlation between, so temptation will tell you there is an evil desire in your heart when you're tempted. Okay? So most of us have been tempted probably today in some form, and so everyone in here in one way or the other has an evil desire in our heart. Something that we know we shouldn't do, but that we probably would do if the opportunity arises. Okay? And so forth. So saying that, we have to recognize that this temptation comes from an enemy. Okay? And what I want to say to you is that until you understand who your enemy is, you cannot defeat him. We talk quite a bit about that, right? Your enemy has certain ways of operation, or he has tactics by which he tries to attack you and defeat you. Satan is certainly the enemy, the darkness of this world, the evil of this world. He is the one who is about the business of implanting within you evil desires, or cultivating those evil desires, or growing a garden of evil desires, right? To where they become more and more prominent and powerful in your life, to a point to where they take you over. In other words, that's your only focus. Alcohol is a good example of how, or even drugs, as from a perspective of how sin works, is how it begins with one little drink, right? Nobody got hurt. I went home and everything was fine, right? But then it ends up to where you're in a place like this, okay? Because now you're an alcoholic or a drug addict. And so you see how it progresses, as it goes forward. So the desire gets stronger and stronger and stronger until it owns you. And I've met with all the guys and gals today, and to be honest with you, there was a time in their life where they were dominated by the drug or the alcohol. Dominated. Everything they thought about was, I'm going to take a vacation. Okay, where and when can I drink on this vacation? Matter of fact, if I can't, I'm not going. Okay, everything you do in life rotates around that evil desire. Okay, and it really takes all the fun out of everything else because you're focused on one thing. Okay, that's how it works. And so you can have more than one evil desire, obviously, but you got to understand who your enemy is. There's a place where he ambushes you. In other words, there's a place of weakness in your life. There is a stronghold about. In other words, if there's a stronghold inside of you where Satan continually attacks you and you're tempted and you continue to fail, you can't expect it just to go away. It's not going away unless you remove it. I had some, and this is another thing I want to discuss with you, is evil desires, for instance, can take sabbaticals and time off and lay dormant. Many of you in this program, and this is the way it works, either you're tempted every day, which is very unusual after the first week or two, or he lays dormant for about 3 months and you think, I've got this figured out. I'm not going to ever use again. I mean, the temptation is gone. And you come to me, or you just pack up and leave. But if you come to me and you ask me, and I will tell you, no, let me tell you, listen. No. Have you got rid of that desire? What desire? There you go. Soon as you hit the streets, that instant gratification of that desire sees that object and says, boy, I got to have that, like right now. Like right now. Is it time to consider any options or thoughts? No, we got to have it right now. There's no other, we can't discuss this with anyone. No one will know anyway. And so, there we go. Evil desire is fulfilled by the object out there. Is that the problem out there, the object? Or is it the heart with the desire? See, the dry drunk is one of the most miserable people. Any of y'all dry drunks in here? Dry drunk? Yeah, you probably right, brother. He's a dry marijuana smoker. And that's an absolute truth. He struggled at times. I have to whip him around a little bit. But he gets on a pity party at times. But anyway, that's what dry drunks do. The desire is still there. But I can't. Oh, my God, I'm being so mistreated in life. I just can't. Everything will be flushed down the toilet. If I do, I can't. I just can't do it. Don't you feel sorry for me? Because I can't. I just really can't. That is a desire that's not being fulfilled. That's a horrible place to be. There's torment in that. Torment in that. That's not what life's about. He wants you to remove the desire. God can remove it from you, and to where, you know what? There is no desire for alcohol or drugs anymore. It's just not there anymore. And some of you say, that's got to be impossible. Some of you, can y'all claim that tonight? Raise your hand. No desire. No desire. Amen. Amen. I really believe that God's the only one that can do that. See, the heart is not our property. God owns it. As a child of God in this room here, you have given your heart unto Him. Now, you've held parts back, right? We talked about the woman at the well last week and her bucket, her water bucket. Some of y'all left the bucket. Some of you carried it with you when you left here. But Jesus says unto you, I'm the living water. You don't need well water. You need the water of the fountain of life that I want to give you. So you have to decide, do you want him to cleanse you, or do you want to continue with that desire and never fulfill it again? What a terrible place to be. So spiritual warfare is this conflict between the desires of the heart that Satan wants you to do and what God's word says you need to be obedient to. And so the conflict is trying to make all this work out for your benefit, right? Because it is about us, right? Yeah, I'm afraid it is. It is about us, isn't it? But yet we want to, somehow we got to get others first in our life, like Jesus first, and then maybe others first, and then maybe us later. That's going to be a hard concept for some. I know that. This man said, I just don't know if that can ever happen. Right? I mean, he's honest. He's honest. But God's going to do that eventually. He's going to find his way to allow God to let him die to self. Yes. Spiritual warfare. This is where delusion comes in. There is actually two things that in delusion that I want you to consider this, and I've already kind of discussed it clearly. Delusion is a lie of Satan, or a lie of your own place. A delusion, you're delusional in the sense that you're not in touch with reality. You can't see the truth of where you are. You're believing at least partly a lie. So to defeat and overcome and defeat these desires of the heart, you've got to conquer them. Okay? And there's two delusions that will keep you from doing that. One is that temptations come from without. Okay? You're tempted from without, or not inside of you. It comes from the world and those out there, the things of the world. Those things are tempting me. So I focus my effort on, and many of us do that, we move. We live in a certain place, and we're around drug addicts and alcoholics, and so we say to ourselves, if I move, because that's the object of my desire, then I'll be away from that. And I won't use anymore, and I won't have any problem with alcohol or drugs, right? Because I'll have new friends there. I'll move. It's from without. But what I have found, and if you've tried that, unfortunately, you go with yourself when you move, right? And the desire of the heart goes with you, and guess what you do when you find this new place to live? It's amazing how fast you can find them. Matter of fact, it's almost like they got a homing device, and they find you. Yeah. And so you end up in the same place. The fact that you're tempted from without is a lie. It's a delusion. The next thing that there's two things. The next thing is I'm tempted because of my goodness. I'm tempted because of my goodness. And everybody looks confused. I said that's a delusion. You're tempted by your goodness. You're not tempted by your goodness. You're tempted by your evil. But every one of us would say, I'm not that. I'm a good person, right? Delusional, when you're delusional, is you see yourself as good. What did Jesus say to the rich young ruler who came to him and said, "Good teacher, let me ask you a question." And Jesus said, Why do you call me good? No one is good except God. Jesus didn't include himself in that. So when you believe that you're tempted because of your goodness, you're like those who say, listen, why did God do that to me? Why did God, I read it today, why would God allow all those people on 9/11 to die? It's because in our mind we're delusional to think that we are good and that God would not do anything to anyone who is good. What we have to recognize is that it has nothing to do with God. It has to do with us. Leave God out of it. God does not tempt you, right? Do we know those verses? You're not tempted. Well, go to James. Go to James 1. If you're tempted in your goodness, then James 1 ought to clear it up for you. James 1, verse 13. So basically, here we are in the first chapter of James, in the 13th verse, and we have a lot of people walking around talking about their being tempted in their goodness in reality. In other words, we're not focusing on our evil, we're focusing on our goodness. And we're being tempted in that. He says, let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. Okay? He doesn't tempt anyone. So you're not tempted in your goodness in the sense that when you're doing good, you're not going to be tempted to do more good because Satan does not work in the area of goodness. So your delusion is that you inside of you somehow you're good. Many of you think you're going to heaven and you have no relationship with Christ. Not say here, but many in the world believe that, right? They believe they're going to heaven because they're good people. And they do good things. They give money to the Cancer Society and so forth. So whatever our justification is, and many of us in this room think we're good in so many ways. And we're not. You're not. I am not. I have an evil intent. I'm broken. No one is good except God. Jesus tried to say to you clearly, do not fall for the delusion that you're good. And you're certainly not tempted in it. The truth of it is that you're tempted from within. Your heart is the problem. The temptation comes from within. And you're tempted because of your evil within you. Okay? The evil desire in you is why you're tempted, because Satan knows that you have that evil desire. Satan has, within the spiritual realm, which very few people today have any concept of or clue of, there is a war going on in the spiritual realm between good and evil. And God certainly understands it, and Satan does as well. And he knows how to tempt you in where you're vulnerable. Have you ever noticed how cunning he is in that? Have any of y'all ever been tempted and looked back and said, wow, he's good. I missed that completely. I mean, I really fell for that one. Yeah, because he is good. He's been doing it a long time. And he's very, very good at it. You're tempted because there's evil within you. Everybody in this room. If you can identify the folks in the program, listen to me. I've talked to many of you today. Unless you identify this desire that takes that object of alcohol or drugs to be fulfilled, you will not quit using or drinking. That desire has to die. You have to find it, put a name on it, ask God to eliminate it. It's like holding on to a branch on the side of a mountain with nothing under you but air. And God below you says, let go. Let go. I can't let go. It's a long way down there. I don't want to fall. I will catch you. Oh, I can't believe you'll do it. I just can't trust you, Lord. Just let go. You got to let go. You have got to let go of that desire. You have got to say, this desire has no place in me. This desire there's no room in my heart for it. God, remove it. First, identify it. He's not going to remove anything that you're not willing to get rid of. And he's not going to get rid of anything that you haven't identified or he hadn't helped you to identify. When you recognize and identify it, then you ask him to remove it. And then you ask him again to remove it until it's gone. And you ask him again till it's removed. And you ask him again and again and again until you're so sick of asking, until you have received what you have asked for. I don't care how long it takes, you've got to have it. For you to make it, for you to live, for you to have life. You have got to kill that desire. You have to die to self. It has to go. If it lives, you will fail again. So I saw someone today say, you got 10 months to figure it out. You got 10 months to find it and ask God to remove it. And you got to want it worse than anything in your life. You got to be willing to be as far from the east as from the west of this desire. You got to say, you know what? I am so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I am done. Lord, show me how. If I ever can get rid of this desire, I will never come back. You pray to God with the intensity and the determination and find the victory in your life. You have to. You have to get there. So it's within. You have to purify your desires. There's a lot of desires that are very appropriate in your life, and God wants to magnify them and to make them work for you. Remember, evil desires can lay dormant for a long period of time. They can lay dormant for a long period of time. Like I've told you already, some of you are going to be tempted on a regular basis. Some of you are not going to be tempted until you walk out the doors. But when you walk out the doors, he's going to hit you like a ton of bricks and say, and you're not prepared for it because you haven't dealt with the desire. Most everybody here is being at least tempted some, and we're able to identify or begin to identify the desires, right? We're working toward that, all of you guys, to where that desire can die and be defeated by God. If you believe because it's dormant that you have defeated it, you're delusional. Only going to leave you when you're involved. It's not going to happen unless you have identified and are willing to remove the desire. If you haven't dealt with it, you still got it. Okay? And it will show itself eventually. It will show itself in your life. Okay? So, saying that, I want the measure of desire, I put measure of desire on one side, an equal mark, leads to the measure of temptation. They will equalize and be pretty close to the same. If you're under a tremendous amount of temptation, you have a lot of desire issues. If you're being tempted rarely, you have a minimal amount of desire issues. So it tells you a story, okay? And you have to take that as an indication of where you stand. Now, many of you need to evaluate your temptation prior to getting here, for instance, okay? Or you being limited, in some ways you're limiting yourself in the program here to some temptations, and some of you have settled to the fact that I'm going to have to do, some of these temptations cannot be fulfilled even if I wanted to, or at least I hope. But before you got here, how much temptation was you under? Measure that, and then begin to compare that with where you are today, and see if we're seeing a correlation between the amount of temptation and also the type of temptation by which you're being tempted. And what I try to get you to do, all of you to do, is you got to examine yourselves daily. You got to recognize when you're being tempted and find the underlying root of what you're being tempted. Just the drinking of alcohol or taking drugs is the object of the desire. It is not the desire. You have to find why. Why am I unhappy in my life as I am? Why am I dissatisfied? Why can't I be content without alcohol or drugs? Why do I always feel depressed because I don't have this or that? Why am I struggling with all these things, and somehow I think in my mind that somehow alcohol and drugs are going to help me fix that? I mean, you've got to get to the bottom of those things as to why there is a root desire there that you're allowing to control you. It's a bondage. Maybe evil is, well, in some cases, the reason you have that desire is because you're unwilling to let go of it. You're unwilling to let go of it. Now, I can get you in a right place, in a right position, and you've all had yourself there. I want to quit. I don't want to use. I don't want to drink anymore. I'm done with this. All that sounds good, and I think that's really what you intend to do. I want to start coming to church. I want to start reading my Bible. All that's good. But if you don't deal with the desire, it ain't gone away. You might look good for a while. You might feel like you're doing great for a while. But that desire is still there. It's just waiting on its opportunity. It's going to wake up. And it wakes up with a vengeance. It wakes up with a vengeance. It's got a bad attitude. It's like a grizzly bear. And it wants to be satisfied like right now. And it starts a process that's going to carry you back. Ain't that right, brother? Your mind gets to thinking, oh my gosh. You might be a month away, but you've already relapsed. You're already gone. You just ain't finished the job yet. In many cases, because you're unwilling to really let go of that evil. And this is another thing, folks. In the world we live in today, we're addicted to instant gratification. We're addicted to instant gratification. We want it, and we want it right now. If you have to wait over 10 or 15 seconds at McDonald's, which you do here most of the time, but they have some sort of a rule where you're supposed to, and within a few seconds, they want to fulfill your instant gratification. They want you to have that before you even think about it being wait a long time. I mean, we have such a problem with waiting, right? We are instant gratification people, and many of you are addicted to that. And those on drugs and alcohol, I mean, you're chasing a drug that is quick and fast and gets me there in a minute. Those that have evil desires are ignorant of the truth and the word. If you in other words, you're delusional. When you believe or leave the evil desire in your mind, you say to yourself, it's going to be okay. I don't have to do, it's too hard to deal with it. I'll just leave it and everything's going to be okay. I'm never, ever going to do those things again. I'm done. You're not done. It's just a matter of time before you do it again because the desire is still there. Folks, in this room tonight, I want you to deal with the desire. I want you to die to self and truly take up your cross and follow him daily. When you'll notice that self is obviously your biggest problem. Or self gets in the way of everything that God's trying to accomplish. In other words, self really becomes your God. You become a God of yourself, and really God is second place to you. Especially in your addiction, but even in the lustly flesh of this world. And many of us are so focused on self that we hardly have the opportunity to get past ourselves. But within self, there's three things that I want to discuss with you quickly that deal with self. The torment of self. In other words, if you leave these desires there, you get the torment of desire. Now, what I mean by the torment of desire is that you're tormented by the desire, yet you know you can't. Or at least you have decided in a temporary fashion, which you call it permanent, but it's probably temporary. But in your mind, you say no, but you're tormented in that place. And we've discussed that enough that I'm not going to spend much more time on that. The desire must go. The next thing, as far as the self, is you're tormented in your fullness that is never enough. In other words, as a user or as someone who is chasing the things of the flesh, you seem full, but yet you say, it's kind of like eating Chinese food. Everybody like Chinese food? I can go eat Chinese food, and 30 minutes later, I'm almost hungry again. I ate a buffet, okay? That's kind of the way this addiction or this self is that in all the fullness of fulfilling or trying to fulfill all that you desire and all that you want and all that you feel like you need, it's still not enough. You never can quite get back to that place that you once got to. You're always chasing after what you can't quite get. You're tormented in that. You're tormented in that. And third, you're tormented in remorse and guilt. I talked to some today, and they would describe to me how it was when they woke up the next morning and they considered all the plans they made last night. They were going to quit their job, and they were going to do this, and they had this planned out here, and they're going to do this. Everything worked perfectly while they were drinking or whatever it was. But the next morning, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my house, my car. I've lost my job probably already. Oh my gosh, my husband, my wife probably is gone already. No telling what I said last night. No telling what I did last night. Where in the world was I half the night? What did I do? Is there some kind of warrant out for my arrest? Did I have a wreck? I don't know what happened. The fear and the anxiety of that moment and the guilt of that moment, the torment of it all. Oh my gosh, I got to have a drink to start back over. The desire has called. You can't defeat your demons. I saw this today. I wrote it down. You can't defeat your demons if you still enjoy their company. You can't defeat your demons if you still enjoy their company. You're delusional if you have if that describes you in any way. Your demons really is those desires that are there. Finish right quickly in James. I read to you the first in verse 13. Let's read just a little bit further. I'll kind of read that again. Let no one say when he is tempted, this is James 1:13, I am tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. Listen, verse 14. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. They're all yours, brothers and sisters. You cannot blame those desires on nobody but yourself. They're yours. You've earned them. I mean, you've cultivated them babies. You've grown them up from seed. I mean, it was just one little drink and one little desire of pleasure, one little lust. You were 13 or 14 years old, and it was so innocent at the time, but here you are 30 or 40 years old, and you've got this gorilla in the room, right? this monster of a thing that now owns me and says, drink now, please. Or use right now, please. Or you cannot go a day without me. You love me more than you love anything. Whew. Yeah, you're drawn away by your own desires and enticed. Then when desire has conceived in verse 16, in other words, you done had a baby. Or no, you got pregnant. Conceiving is actually, yeah. Let me get this straight. Conception comes before birth, right? Yeah. You done conceived this thing, okay? This desire's done conceived. It's done been implanted. It's ready to start growing. Conceives it what? It gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. So he lays perfectly clear what and how desire, the life cycle of desire. Life cycle of desire. It starts because you own it, it's yours, and you conceive it, you dream about it. You contemplate it, you manipulate it, you massage it, you figure out how I can make it work, how no one can know, how I can get away with it, how I can do this, and no one will have any doubts about it. And no one's getting hurt because no one's really getting hurt. It's just me. I'm just having a little pleasure. It's conceived, but it gives birth. When it gives birth, it ain't near as bad as it's going to be because it ain't full grown. But when it gets full grown, oh boy, nothing left but death. It will destroy you. We're in a very tough business with sin and all because the desires are very destructive. And life and death is really dependent on your choices and your reaction to those things. And we see it very critically here, how important it is to make the right choices. We see it all the time. My desire for you is that you understand desire and understand desires in the heart, and that quit fighting the outside, deal with the heart, defeat the power of the desire in you, let God have it. Pray, and this is what I wrote down. Give it up. Confess it. Truly pray that God will remove the evil desires until you find freedom from the bondage of it. You will find freedom from the bondage of the desires. I truly believe that. And some of you now don't even realize you're in bondage, but you will see it once you find freedom. So, but God is the only one who can deal with the heart. Okay? Any questions tonight? Or I'm definitely through with delusion. I'll be somewhere next week. I don't know where, but I'll be here. Thank you for being here.